Hey, yo, this is Sammy J from Chicago, and you're listening to Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. And it's like something to think about, right? Like, what if my name was Shirley, right? And I'm like, yo, I am serious, and you can feel comfortable with calling me Shirley, because that's my name. And always remember, right? Like, life is all about when your internet goes down. It's not how many times it goes down, but how many times you get back up. Come on, get up. Listen up! You're better than this! Hey, yo!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. Dee, we are at the end of season 5. Can you believe it? I mean, we made it 5 years, and we're completing our 5th year.
I can feel no sense of measure, no illusions as we take refuge in young man's pleasure, breaking down the dreams that we make. That's what this podcast is about, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking down the young man's dreams. When we were young in the 80s, young in the 90s. If you were young in the 70s, you may not be as big a fan of this episode because you may love a yes that's not the yes we're talking about today.
That's true.
By the way, we are here today to talk about yes 90,125 90125, which is interesting because if you listen to the intro music for Beverly Hills 90210,
yes,
it's very similar to Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Oh, really?
Yeah, take a listen to it.
Let's play that right here. How about that?
I don't know. I'm just saying, somebody was like 90210. What about 90125?
Hey, I'll tell you this. Before we get into what that actually means,
Yeah.
I was with our good friend Doug Gray. We were taking some kids ice skating the other night, and he was sitting shotgun, and we were talking, and he's like, is that like a zip code? Like, I mean, because it's close to 90210, right?
It is, yeah.
So 90125 would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That
may be somebody's zip code.
So we looked it up.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what zip code that is?
No, what zip code is it?
It's non-existent. It's just not a zip code. Right. Too bad, right?
Right.
If that had been like...
Yes. So we will, in this episode, we will tell you the secret of what 90125 means. And we will tell you the secret of this band and how they fell apart and then reconfigured themselves into what we got in 1983. I'll tell you, this is a fascinating history. And I will also tell you, when you asked me, you're like, hey, do you know what 90125 means? And I said, I think it's how many members they've had in this band. I mean, gee, many, this band is still around.
Yeah.
There are no original members left.
Right.
There's some members from the 70s there and from 1980 there, but that's it. Like, none of the guys that we're going to talk about today are still in the band.
I will say this. Typically, the band history, that's kind of your area of expertise. That's where you like to concentrate and follow rabbit trails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This may be the most interesting formation of Yes and how it's related to several other bands and the breaking up of Yes and the coming back together of Yes. I was blown away, and I dare say that really no other band has gone through this exact same process.
Well, I mean, we are here today to talk about their 11th studio album.
Right.
11th. I don't know that we've ever talked about a band's 11th album. I mean, we've talked about Aerosmith and Ozzy Osbourne and many bands that have many albums. I don't think we've ever hit the double digits before. And it was almost 40 years. It was 41 years ago.
That's right.
41 years ago
This
that
band
this thing came out.
formed in 1968. My dad was a teenager when this band was formed.
Right. And as I said, they went through so many changes of members in this band. I could not possibly, in an hour-long episode, give you everything. So what's interesting is what we've got here that we're going to talk about today is really Yes Part 3, but it was almost Led Zeppelin Part 2.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll get to that story in just a bit. Before we get into all of that, I just want to say Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Christmas was a few days ago.
Release.
Even though for us, Christmas is in the future. For people listening to this, it's in the past. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. That's what I meant to say. What I really mean is I'm very grateful and thankful for the gift that is our listenership, our fandom. I appreciate you guys so much. You've made it amazing 5 years. I hope we have 10 times as many coming up, and we'll be talking about our 11th studio album in 41 years.
Right. All right, well, let's dive into Yes 90125.
Let's see. We have this new album from this kind of newly reconglomerated band. Can we open up with a banger?
Let's save the best for first. What do you say? I mean, really, let's start off with one of the biggest songs of 1984. I think it was like 11th overall for that year.
Yeah.
And we're talking about one of the best years for music
in history.
Right.
Maybe the best, arguably the best year in history. And this one topped the charts for several weeks. Here we go.
Number 1.
Owner of a Lonely Heart. First 3 seconds of the song, and we got so much to talk about already.
It's incredible, right? One of the first songs to include a bunch of samples.
Yeah. Other than some select rap groups.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing this in 1983 in the rock world.
And really, they pop in this song. It's almost impossible. You can't ignore them. It's like, but no. Really cool. This song was released October 24th, 1983. This song reached all the way to number 1 in 1984.
Yep.
Do you want to hear the top 5?
I was expecting you to be here.
I hate to lead with that, but I know you're
I'm
itching
ready
for
it right now.
Okay. So this reached number 1 January 21st, 1984. Your top 5, not as strong as I was hoping for in January of 84. Number 5, Break My Stride by Matthew Wilder.
Yes, I know that.
Number 4, Talking in Your Sleep, The Romantics.
Yes, we covered that one in our top 5 of 1984. Be sure and go check out that one. We did talk about this song too.
Yes, we did.
Spoiler alert.
Yes,
Sorry.
we did.
Didn't know that we were going to cover this album for sure. And so it made it onto that chart.
Number 3, Karma Chameleon.
Yeah.
Pretty big.
Unescapable.
Yep. Number 2, Say, Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson.
It's your favorite one. This is where Michael Jackson wins an arm wrestling contest. And is oddly flirting with his sister. I don't know.
That was before his major fallout with Paul McCartney over the Beatles catalog issue. And of course, number 1, Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Can we talk about the guitar? This guitar sound, that da 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 da. I mean, it grabs a hold of your brain and squeezes it.
It
right?
does.
I mean, it's so good. It's so powerful. I don't know what the magic is that they did. I mean, this is a studio guitar that there's no question that they were doing some magic in the studio here to make this sound as loud and crunchy as it does. But chef's kiss that they did their job.
You've got the great crunchy guitar riff at the beginning.
Yep.
You've got a little arpeggio guitar.
Yes, that's right.
Right? You got the samples. Yep. You've got the sample sound effects. You've got the bass that's basically mimicking the boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
And then just all this fun stuff. And then the vocals are off the chart.
And this song was composed on the toilet.
Completely and finished on the toilet.
Finished. Well, not quite. Not quite finished. There's an interesting story about pieces that were missing of this song.
That's true.
And the reunification of the band, yes, that comes along with this. But we'll get into that story here in a little bit. Did you get to go watch this video?
Yeah, I did. I think it's one of the worst videos of 1984.
What?
I did. I seriously think that because it started and then it stopped. So the one I watched, it's like the band, and then John Anderson says, "Wait a minute," and the song comes to a grinding halt, and John Anderson's like, Can we do this any other way? The song restarts, and then it's like people turning into animals.
I remember like the mainstream video that you would see on MTV where they didn't show the full. I mean, I remember seeing the full version where they do that weird stop-start thing and change into birds and other animals and stuff like that.
Snakes and lizard.
Right, which, again, I mean, it kind of makes me think of the Pink Floyd Learning to Fly video where he's like, takes the running jump and turns into the bird, right?
Sure.
Well, the directors of the video are Audrey Powell and Storm Thurgeson, who did a bunch of the Pink Floyd artwork. And so I'm guessing this was a director decision, not a band decision.
Sure.
We won't blame it on the band.
For guys who started in 1968, music videos was kind of uncharted territory.
Sure.
You got to do this to keep up because MTV is a huge new thing. And these guys are like, what are we doing here? What
you're trying to tell me is that the video was killing the radio star?
Oh, my gosh, that's so good.
Going to bring it in.
By the way, okay, we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
Okay. But I do want to say this before we go any further.
Yeah.
This song was kicked out of number one by a song that we've talked about.
Okay.
Relax, don't do it when you want to go to it. Relax, don't do it.
Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
That was one of our Patreon episodes. Love that episode.
Do you remember who was the producer of that song?
No, I don't remember.
Trevor Horn.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. He's the one that made that song so good.
That's it.
Oh, my
He
gosh.
plucked it and said,
Yeah.
guys, can I vamp this up for you?
Yes. Yeah, they were just kind of a weird, there's not any politically correct way for me to say what I'm thinking right now, but yes, they were kind of a
They
weird
were
show.
an alternate club type of
Alternate
band.
lifestyle club
Yes.
band, and Trevor Horn said, this actually has got a bit of a hook. If you do some right production on this, we can make this a hit.
Is
And
it okay?
he's right, yeah.
Is it okay if I make this a number one smash around the world?
Right.
Right.
We'll sell lots of T-shirts.
So Relax and Owner of a Lonely Heart are sort of third cousins.
Yeah.
Okay. In just a minute, we're going to talk about another song that I think is very strongly related to this.
Yeah.
But let's kick that down the road.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned it. Trevor Rabin wrote this song on the toilet. Well, Trevor Rabin, who's this guy? He's not in Yes.
Yeah, so Trevor Rabin had started off, he was this South African guy. He was in a band in South Africa, got pretty famous in a band called Rabbit.
Trevor Rabin? Rabbit?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think that was, well, maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe, I don't know how Rabbit came up with his name, but I will tell you that the Volkswagen Rabbit was about to come out in the U.S.
Okay.
And they were like, hey, we like this band. We want this band to come to the U.S. and be like composing the music for our promotions of this new Rabbit car.
Yes.
And they were like, we're in. The only problem was in 1980, whatever it was, they couldn't get a visa to the U.S. Can you guess why?
Apartheid.
You got it.
Yes.
That is right.
That's the same reason why Krugerrands are illegal in the United States.
Yes. So Trevor Rabin was frustrated after that, left the band. He went to the UK. Guess UK didn't have a problem with apartheid. I don't know. He moved to London. He started a record company up there, got some funding from a milling company in South Africa.
Okay.
And so he starts producing. He produces Thin Lizzy. He produces Manford Man. And of
Trevor
course,
Rabin?
Yes, Trevor Rabin is producing these records
Wow.
and of course playing on these albums as well because he is a brilliant musician. He's not only a guitarist, he plays keyboards and other stuff, just, and an incredible composer. And so Geffen Records comes in and they're like, hey, Trevor, do you have any demos? And he's like, yes, I do. And he plays them what would ultimately become Yes 90125.
Yeah. So there actually is an early version of this song available. It's a compilation of demos, and it's called 90124. So I do want to tell you this quick story. We talk about Trevor Rabin. They really didn't know what to do with him. He's kind of like Bryan Adams. He's a talented singer-songwriter.
Right.
Working on songs.
Yep.
He can sing. He can play guitar. Am I going to be in a band? Am I going to be by myself? Geffen signed him to this development deal. And then they started kind of trying to push him around to figure out where he would fit. But he took these songs to Arista, and Clive Davis, who we've talked about before,
Many times.
said, no, I don't like these songs. They're too strange. That's Owner of a Lonely Heart
Yeah.
and Changes and some of these others we're going to talk about.
Yeah, most of the songs on the album, yeah.
So this is what he said. Clive Davis says to him, these songs are too weird. I don't like them. I want you to write stuff that sounds more like Foreigner.
Yes, that's right.
And Trevor Rabin's
Right.
like, thank you very much. I'm not going to do that.
Have a nice day.
See you
Mr.
later.
Davis.
Kiss my butt. Clive Davis, right? So ultimately, these songs caught the ear of an A&R guy named Ron Fair.
Yep.
Ron Fair, who I think you've got a history on, basically said, look, I love this song. I want it to be a hit, and I will make sure this song is a hit.
Yeah, he was with RCA Records, and he just basically said, let me play with it, let me edit it. But as you can easily tell by looking at the album, this is not an RCA Records album, so something else happened. But you'll have to wait and see what happened there in just a bit.
Okay. I don't feel like we've told people enough how terrible this music video is, especially in relation to how great the song is.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential that got missed, I think, on this one, but it was still on all the time.
It was on all the time.
Because it was a time in history where there were a lot more videos to play, but MTV was, instead of just setting the standard that these are the songs you're going to listen to, they also followed the top 40. And this was a song people were listening to, and they're like, well, we got to play this video, even if it's terrible.
Even if it's terrible and it's full of old, ugly English guys. Right?
Just yank that guy out, carry him out like a madman.
I hate to move on too fast from this song.
Such a good song.
I do want to emphasize there's one part in the song that just, every time I hear it, blows my socks off. Let me play the part in the song that really blows my socks off.
Right.
So they really lean on that part of it, like heart.
That sound, that voice is John Anderson.
Yes.
And John Anderson is one of the OG Yes guys and was not a part of this project at all until he was. And he gets credit, a writing credit on the song, even though Trevor Rabin basically completed the whole thing.
On the toilet.
Because he had the chorus and he had kind of the scat of the lyrics, but didn't really have it. But that very first line, that move yourself,
Yep.
that is John Anderson's contribution. He came in and added some more lyrics in the verses other places. And that opening line and that solo, that long scream, lonely heart, that you just pointed out, it helps make this song what it is. I mean, maybe he didn't write it, but he made it something special.
It's a banger, and when it hits that, it levels up.
Yeah. And there's so many breakdowns and movements, and this is not your standard rock and roll song. This is just awesomeness all over, coming at you from all directions.
Yep. All right, we can move on to the next song.
We got to move on. We'll never get through the album if we don't move on.
All right. Well, hold on. Oh, wait. The next song on the album is called Hold On.
As a guy who plays music and a guy who plays guitar, I can tell you that many guitar players start off by learning to play the blues if they want to learn to play rock and roll music, right?
Right.
That's like stage one, right? If you want to be able to play the lead guitar, you're probably going to learn how to play the blues first. It's not basic necessarily, but it is kind of stage one.
Good starting point.
This is what happens when a progressive rock band takes a blues song and says, okay, let's see what we can do with the blues.
Well, I'll one-up you.
Yeah.
I think this is what happens when a progressive rock band takes two blues songs and
Right.
merges them together.
Yeah, that's right. You've got a combination of two songs, one called Hold On and the other one called Moving In.
Right. Both written by Trevor Rabin. He brought them to the band, and Trevor Rabin had written both of these songs, and they're like, you know what? Like this part, like that part, I think we should merge this into one song, and you can kind of hear it. At the beginning, it's got one beat, and then it hits that chorus, and it kind of changes right there. It's great.
Oh, yeah, this is a fantastic song. And you say, he brought it to the band.
Yes?
We got to kind of know who that is, right? Who's the band?
Okay, let's
So,
talk about this. Yeah.
On the bass, we've got Chris Squire, founding member of the band, yes. We have Alan White, drummer,
Okay.
member of the band, yes.
Yep.
On keyboards, Tony Kaye,
Right.
who had been a member of the band, Yes.
And then he wasn't.
Yeah, yes. And you've got Trevor Rabin, who's the guy who's got this demo that they're turning into an album.
I just want you to know, Dee, I've got this diagram that shows who is in the band,
Okay.
what band they were in,
Uh-huh.
what band they went to, because I couldn't keep it straight. But it's so incredibly fascinating.
It is complex stuff. And the thing is that these guys, most of them were successful in multiple different bands.
That's right.
Yeah. When Trevor Rabin has this kind of disappointing news from Clive Davis of, hey, can you sound more like Foreigner? And it's like, okay, now I'm depressed.
Right.
He then had this little glimmer of hope that Ron Fair was going to do something with Owner of a Lonely Heart, but then that didn't materialize. So he's kind of had two false starts here. And then he gets a call from Phil Carson and Richard Steinberg of Atlantic Records. He gets a call from Phil Carson because Phil Carson had just been introduced to him by Mutt Lange.
I did not come across a Mutt Lange connection.
Yes, so Mutt Lange had worked with Trevor Rabin before. Trevor Rabin is a fantastic musician, so he'd done a lot of studio session work. And so Mutt Lange is like, hey, Phil Carson from Atlantic Records, you really should talk to Trevor Rabin. And so Phil Carson listens to the demos and he's like, okay, I have two bands for you to be in. And he's like, I can do one band unless you know some sort of magic trick that I don't know.
Right.
And he's like, oh, well, you just got to pick, right? And so band number one, Cozy Powell.
What?
Yeah, James Buckley's ears just perked up too.
Right.
Who is a friend of Trevor Rabin's.
Okay.
Jack Bruce, Keith Emerson from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, who's also a friend of Trevor Rabin's.
Well, we'll talk more about them here in a second.
And then these other two guys named Chris Squire and Alan White is who he met first, and he immediately hit it off with them. And it wasn't that they made fantastic music on their first meeting.
Yeah.
He just liked them. They just got along well.
Hey, that's why I hang out with you.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's right. You want to work with somebody who you like. And I mean, I guess he already knew Cozy and already knew Keith. And so it was like, okay, yeah, I know those guys. They're fine. But he wanted this band that Chris Squire and Alan White were trying to put together. They do one rehearsal, and then they say, you know what? We think you need a co-singer. We'd like to bring in Trevor Horn. And so Trevor Horn comes in and sings with them. And then Trevor Rabin is like, I am not going to be in a band with Trevor Horn. He's just not that good. Okay.
Wow.
So it's just not going to work. And so they said, well, how about he produces? He says, that sounds great. Trevor Horn can produce the album. I do not want to sing with him. And so the record company is like, listen, we like Chris's voice. I mean, Chris has got a integral part of the harmonies you're hearing on this.
Sure.
And we like Trevor's voice, but they're not like reaching out and grabbing us. And so as it happens, Chris happens to be at a party, and who should be there but John Anderson. And John Anderson comes over and says, hey, I hear you making some really good music right now. And Chris says, you should really hear it. And so they go to John's house, but they don't go inside because Chris's wife and John's wife hate each other.
Oh, wow.
That was a part of their old history was, and not only did they eventually not get along, with their wives hated each other. So they're sitting outside his house in a car with a tape deck. He pushes in Trevor Rabin's demo, and John Anderson listens and says, I would love to help you out with this if you want me to. He's like, come on over. So he just came in really to kind of add vocals. That was it. Just add them.
Right.
And then he became the lead singer.
Okay, can I back you up? Because I've got something interesting to add. Okay, so here's the interesting thing to me, Dee. Between the 9th album of Yes, called Tornado, which is, I think, a terrible name.
Wait. Tornado?
Tornado.
Like the combination of tornado and tomato?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And their 10th album, Drama, John Anderson quits.
Yeah.
John Anderson is the lead singer. He's the sound of the band. He's the signature of the band.
Yeah.
So he leaves.
Yep.
Okay. Then you add these two guys, Trevor Horn and Jeffrey Downs.
Yep.
Who you and I know better as the Buggles.
Yes.
Video killed the radio star. Video killed the radio star. In my mind and in my car, we can't rewind. We've gone too far. Pictures keep.
They lost Hans Zimmer somewhere along the way.
What? Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer got lost, and they're like, where'd Hans go? Oh, wait, there's Yes. Let's see if they need people. And as it turned out, they did.
So Trevor Horn and Jeffrey Downs step into Yes. Trevor Horn takes over lead vocals. Now, stay with me on this. He imitates John Anderson's voice.
You can't. I mean, just think about the guy who's singing Video Killed the Radio Star and the guy who's singing Leave It.
Right.
And you're going to go, there's no way that guy sounds that like that other guy.
Right.
Right.
I'm going to look at my diagram here. So after the 10th album, Drama, Yes says, that's it. We can't stand each other. We're breaking up. Okay. Imagine a piece of glass shattering. So Chris Squire and Alan White are looking for a band.
Okay. Hold that thought. We got to keep going. We're only on song number 2. We got to move on to song number 3 here. Hold that thought, because this is a heck of a story.
Song number 3 is It Can Happen.
You can fool yourself. You can cheat until you're blind.
Okay, Dee, this is the 3rd single released in June of 1984. Reaches number 5 on the mainstream rock charts, number 51 on the Hot 100. Written in 1981 when Chris Squire, John Anderson, and Trevor Rabin had created this band called Cinema.
Yeah. Well, before they got to Cinema,
Yep.
Chris Squire and Alan White are still looking for a band. The Yes has broken up. They're looking for a band. And I love the intro to this because this is a sitar playing, right? You've got that East Indian style of music going, and I dig it. Like this, the Beatles had brought it over.
Thank you, George Harrison.
Right. Ravi Shankar showed everybody how cool the sitar could be, right? And one of the bands that had an incredibly great song with the sitar called Kashmir was a band that you know, Led Zeppelin.
That's right.
And so while Chris Squire and Alan White were looking for a band, they just, again, I love these party meetings because they seem to be scattered throughout the storyline. Who should they happen to meet but Jimmy Page? And Jimmy Page is like, oh, I loved Yes. We obviously loved Led Zeppelin, right? I mean, they're brothers. Like the Yes and Led Zeppelin both started in 1969. Rolling Stone, when those 2 albums came out, Rolling Stone said these 2 bands are the bands most likely to succeed.
Oh, wow.
And they're not too far off. I mean, we're kind of doing this in memento order here where we're working our way back history. So we'll talk about the Yes of the 1970s in a bit. But obviously Zeppelin has broken up. John Bonham has died. And Jimmy Page is looking for a band. And Chris and Alan are looking for a band. And so, of course, they get together, right? And so then they've got to think of a name. And we've got the ex-members of Yes and the ex-member of Led Zeppelin. So you have X, Yes, Zeppelin, X, Y, Z.
It's brilliant. It's so freaking brilliant. It's too bad that this did not really ever take off.
Right. Well, they did a whole bunch of demo songs, right? Their ambition, their idea is we're going to make an album. This is going to happen. And they've got every right, having just had successful careers, to think it's going to happen, right? And so they demo up several songs, and apparently there are bootleg copies of these demos out there. Like we could go track them down if we really wanted to.
I believe one of those songs is called Run with the Fox.
Yes, it is. A Christmas song. Happy holidays.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it is a song for Christmas. And so they had, obviously, Jimmy Page plays guitar. You've got Chris Squire playing bass. You've got Alan White playing drums. What are we missing here? Lead singer.
Yeah.
Geez, our lead singer we had a falling out with him. Jimmy, do you know anybody? Yeah, I could call Robert Plant if you'd like.
Right.
Sure, that'd be great. If you think that's a good idea. I mean,
Right.
and so he calls Robert Plant up, and Robert Plant listens to the music of the former members of Yes and Jimmy Page, and of course, he is absolutely 100% against it.
Yeah.
He's like, it's too complex.
Don't like it.
And he's still kind of bummed out about John Bonham dying. And so basically that killed XYZ before it ever got started.
It did give us, however, the Honey Drippers.
You're going to have to give me more information on that, sir.
The Honey Drippers were a little band, had a couple of hit songs. Basically, it's Robert Plant and a couple of his buddies who just want to put out songs that honor his favorite music. So he came out with a hit, a remake of the song, Sea of Love.
Come with me, my love, to the sea of love.
that one very well. I just thought that was Robert Plant by himself. I didn't know that the group was called the Honey Drippers.
The Honey Drippers. Yeah, that song was a hit.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that fell in my lap right as you were saying that. But there's fascinating other stories with other bands, with other hit songs that we got to get to.
Sure.
But before we move on, I want to hit just a couple of things on It Can Happen. During the guitar solo, you hear lines from the movie The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde.
Yes.
Does that mean anything to you?
I know who Oscar Wilde is, and I'm familiar with The Importance of Being Earnest. It's kind of a staple for a drama major. Yes.
I thought it might.
Yes. Yeah.
I have no relation to this at all, but it's
Okay.
just interesting.
I'll tell you, Oscar Wilde was convicted of buggery whenever he was.
Buggery.
I believe he might have died in jail from some sort of disease he got from the buggery or something. But anyway, a well-regarded and renowned playwright.
Yes. I did watch the video on this. I will tell you that the highlight for me was the guys in a circle with the camera panned up, looking at them, and they all have cheap colored sunglasses on. All I could think is that these guys need help with their videos.
It's interesting because we kind of have to look at what was going on with them at the time, because just because they'd had success in the past doesn't mean they've got all kinds of money to spend now, or that the record company is ready to spend all kinds of
That's
money
true.
on them. But I'll come to that story here in a little bit too. Chris Squire wrote this one on the piano.
Chris Squire says this song was a message of hope, just a way through the world looking for a good route.
Love it.
Next song on the album is called Changes.
So this one starts off, and it sounds like a xylophone.
Sounds like a xylophone to me.
I just looked up personnel. I cannot find anybody playing the xylophone. So I don't know if it falls under percussion, and Alan White was doing it,
Right?
or if they did it on a synthesizer. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I got nobody playing xylophone on this.
I've got something for you, and you're going to think I'm crazy.
Okay.
The song starts off so distinctly with that xylophone.
Yeah.
And then you hit a guitar note, and then it transitions into a different song.
Yeah, it turns into a Tangerine Dream kind of electronic masterpiece. Yeah.
I've got two songs that I think were influenced by this song. I'm going to play it for you real quick and see what you think.
Yeah, I love it.
Tell me if I'm crazy. The beginning part of this song, I think, influenced this song.
You're not. It is the same rhythm and melody. It is. I hope Deaf Dave's listening.
Dave, are you listening? Go back and listen to our Beastie Boys episode.
Yeah, heck yeah.
And then it transitions into a different song that I think could be this one.
That one came out before.
So maybe that song was influenced by the Police.
Sure. I mean, very easily could have been. So this one was not one that he had on the demo either. This is one he wrote while he was depressed after being told by Clive Davis, you need to sound more like Foreigner. I'm not kidding. That's exactly how I was. Oh, gosh, I got to write a song here to express my blues. It's this song that we get from Trevor Rabin from this.
So Trevor Rabin's the guy who stepped in and wrote Unravel Only Hard and kind of got this Yes project off the ground. Did you know that he has written several movie scores?
You mean like National Treasure?
Yes,
And
like National Treasure.
Con Air and Armageddon
Yes.
and Black Trash. Whoa, did I catch you with that last one?
Black Trash?
Black Trash. That was his first one. He wrote it in 1976 when he still lived in South Africa. And
Black Trash?
yeah, it might sound like a blaxploitation thing, but it's not. It kind of sounds like a buddy cop movie. It's a black journalist and a white cop, I believe, that are teaming up to try to, solve some sort of crime that's going on.
Interesting.
Yeah, he composed that. He's had dozens.
Okay, let's just run through this list real quick because you've said some: Armageddon, Bad Boys 2, Coach Carter, Con Air, Deep Blue Sea, Enemy of the State, Get Smart, Gone in 60 Seconds, I Am Number 4, National Treasure, Remember the Titans, Rockstar, and Snakes on a Plane.
Snakes on a plane. Spoiler alert, I don't think there are any skippers on this entire album. You're going to go ahead and disagree with me on that?
I'm going to disagree with you.
Well,
on
I
that
can't
one.
wait to see which one you pick, but yes. So, like I said, I feel like we're kind of going in reverse on this history here, but to jump back forward, XYZ doesn't work out.
Right.
They get together with Trevor Rabin, like I said, and they're putting this music together based on his demos, and he's going to be the singer. And they've decided, hey, we're going to call this band Cinema.
Right.
It just happens to be a coincidence that 3 of the 4 band members at this point are former members of Yes.
Okay, now who are those 3?
Those 3 are Tony Kaye, Chris Squire, and Alan White.
Now, Tony Kaye came from a previous...
Yes, he was a Yes member from long ago. He was sacked back in 1971.
That's right.
Yeah, he was still friends with Chris and Alan. I don't think we're in the decision-making process for that sacking. But you know why he got sacked?
No.
He refused to play the synthesizer. He's like, I will play the organ and I will play the piano, but I'm not going to play these new synthesizers. I don't like them. Well, if you're familiar with Yes's music from the 70s, you're going to need some synthesizers, my friend.
Right. Before you go there,
Yeah.
80 version of Yes. Trevor Horn, who had been the lead vocalist, he goes on to become a major record producer.
Yes.
I even saw something that said Trevor Horn invented the 80s.
He definitely had a heavy hand in the sound of especially the new wave side of the 80s, for sure. The British new wave sound was heavily influenced by Mr. Trevor Horn.
I came across an album of Trevor Horn's that he's done recently where he reimagines a bunch of songs from the 80s.
Okay.
One of which is Owner of a Lonely Heart, which is a symphony version of it. Awesome, right? So he goes on to become a record producer. But 2 of the guys from that 1980 version of Yes, Steve Howe and Jeffrey Downs, they go on to form a band with John Wetton on bass and Carl Palmer, and they create the supergroup Asia.
Right. Huge. I mean, yeah, like these guys, they don't seem to fail.
It's incredible. Now, I told you before we started this, I'm like, Heat of the Moment is one of Asia's biggest, probably their signature song.
Yeah.
When you play that big guitar sound at the beginning of Heat of the Moment, it sounds a lot like Owner of a Lonely Heart.
It does. It's not that it's the same melody per se, but maybe that same chord is the first chord, and that guitar sound, that crunch
That
sound.
big guitar.
Big crunchy guitar right at the beginning is very similar. It's also very similar to the sound of the guitar for the theme for MTV.
Interesting.
So at the point that Chris Squire has got John Anderson in the car and is playing the tape for him so that their wives don't know that they're hanging out again together, they've spent all of their money. We mentioned that Phil Carson from Atlantic Records was the guy who had kind of gotten them going. Well, Phil is the guy who's footing the bill for all of this, and he spent £300,000, and they're not done, but they're close. And they go back to a guy named Ahmet Ertcan, who is a founder of Atlantic Records and who 13 years earlier had signed a band for the first time called Yes.
Ooh.
So he hears this new version, John Anderson and Tony Kaye and Chris Squire and Alan White and this new guy who's obviously very good. And he's like, this seems like the new Yes to me.
Changing places, put yourself to the ground.
And they're like, we really want to separate ourselves from that, or some of them. Trevor Rabin is like, I don't really want to be the new Yes. And he's like, well, I really think you should be. But they came out with a promo on MTV as Cinema.
Right.
And all of a sudden their phones start ringing and they're like, hey, you can't call yourself Cinema because we're a band that is already called Cinema. And so at that point, what do? The band name you wanted is gone. They're pushing this new band name on you. And you're thinking, are we going to be like the new Coke?
Yeah. Right.
They literally, they've got the new name, and the album they almost called the New Yes album. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't go with that, although I still think that 90125 is a terrible title. Now, you mentioned 90214 earlier. The way that they get this number, this random number that's not a zip code, is it's apparently just the catalog number for their record label.
Yeah.
Like when they don't know the name of the album, they'll go, "Hey, hand me album 90124."
That's right.
The information that I got was that was what this album was called first. They first called it 90124, but somehow there was like, I don't know, the different regions of the world, there was already a 90124. And so they were like, well, let's just call it 90125 then.
That's interesting. So the band Cinema that never really formed with Chris Squire and Alan White and Trevor Rabin and those guys, one of the remnants of that project is an instrumental, the next song in the album.
Next song in the album.
And it's called Cinema. This is the song in the album that I really don't have any use for.
This is a song in the album that won the Grammy.
I know. I know. It's okay. I've disagreed with the Grammys before.
Oh my gosh. No, this is a great song. You want to have people singing. You don't want to get stuck in the middle of a singing album with a no singing song.
That's right. That's right.
What is this no singing song?
I am glad it's not 20 minutes long like their old stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Right.
They had a double album, D, where there was one song per side, both albums. Double album.
Four songs. Yes.
No, keep that, not interested.
You are in stark disagreement from the Yes of the 70s fans.
Yes.
So this actually came from one of those 20-minute long songs. It was just the intro to that song. I don't know how long this song is. What's our time?
2 minutes.
So this 2 minutes was the instrumental before, I guess, maybe more instruments because that was the nature of the band. But maybe the 2 minutes before John Anderson started singing. But yes, I don't think we had room in 1983 for any 20-minute prog rock songs. But we got room for a 2-minute prog rock intro, which the Grammys loved it, man.
Hey, 1985 got the Grammy for the best rock instrumental. This is one of 2 Grammy nominations that they received.
Yeah.
The other was Chris Squire's version of Amazing Grace off of the 9012 Live.
Oh, okay.
Which was directed by Steven Soderbergh.
Oh, yeah. I did see that. Yeah. Mr. Steven Soderbergh.
How about that?
Very nice.
When this song is played live, it's usually followed by a hit like Leave It or Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Right.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, so I was doing last minute research at a bar before I came over here.
Yes.
And one of my buddies at the bar, Ron, is sitting next to me and he asked me what I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm researching 90125. And he's like, I don't know what that is. And I said, Owner of Lonely Heart. He goes, oh, Frank Zappa covered that song. And I was like,
what?
Now, Ron, anytime I mentioned any band, he will bring up Frank Zappa. It is unavoidable.
Really?
He will either bring up Frank Zappa or he will bring up Buckethead. But he loves those bands, but I had to hear it. I had to go, okay, Frank Zappa has covered Owner of a Lonely Heart. Apparently it's like a mashup or something. It's Bamboozled by Love / Owner of a Lonely Heart. We'll listen to that one here. Now, if you remember, we talked about Frank Zappa whenever we covered Toto 4.
He humiliated Steve Lukather.
He did. Poor 17-year-old Steve Lukather left Frank Zappa's audition with his tail between his legs.
That's it. Hit stop on your tape player, kick it out, flip it over for side 2.
Wait. This is the song I've been waiting the whole episode for.
I don't blame you. It's freaking awesome. This song is called
Leave It.
I can feel no sense of measure, no illusions as we take refuge in young man's pleasure, breaking down the dreams we make real.
The year is 1996. I am working as a waiter in a restaurant called the Varsity Sports Grill. We had a new thing that was called a PA, where it played music all across the whole restaurant that was programmed from the satellite. And one day as I'm working, I heard a song that I probably hadn't heard in at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And this came on, and I heard it with the speakers that were so powerful that the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I was like, I forgot how freaking good this song was.
I mean, the ping-ponging vocals on this and the melody and that kind of intro vocal thing that happens.
Building harmonies, it's in... You remember last episode I told you I had texted my brother and I was like, hey, do you like A Breakfast in America? And he sent me ?
Right.
And I said, Supertramp, 1979. And a full day goes by and he's like, yeah, I know a lot of these songs. I just didn't know that I know them. Like, I don't know the names of the songs, but I seem to know all the words. So that was his Supertramp response.
Yep.
So a week ago, I texted him. I said, actually, I'll go a few texts up. He said, did you watch the Yacht Rock documentary yet? I said, not yet, but I will.
Oh, it's so good.
I said, did you own Yes 90125? And his response was, that's the dumbest question I've ever heard. I would pay $100 for anything with the song Leave It. Plus, it was instant street cred to me to say I was listening to 90125 on my Pioneer PKR7AW. Instant.
Give it up for Dee's brother.
So, yeah, I actually went down and saw him and we watched Yacht Rock together.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, it's a fantastic documentary.
So good.
Love it. So the harmonies on this song.
Love it. Yes.
This actually finally gets me to the beginning of the history of this band.
Okay.
Okay, so in 1967, Chris Squire, the bass player, and a guy named Peter Banks, a guitarist, were in a band called The Syn, S-Y-N. They left that band and joined a band called Mabel Greer's Toy Shop. It was a psychedelic rock band. A club owner introduces Chris Squire to his bartender named John Anderson. That was it. John was a bartender who I guess sang at the bar, and the club owner was like, you need to go meet with these guys, because Mabel Greer's Toy Shop was not making particularly great music. They're not,
Right.
not that great, all right? But these guys, I can tell they've got talent. You need to meet with them. So when John Anderson and Chris Squire first started talking to each other, they found that they both love the harmonies of Simon and Garfunkel.
Really?
Yes.
Very good.
So then they brought in Bill Bruford on drums and Tony Kaye on keyboards. Tony Kaye is one of those original guys. And they decided, you know what? Mabel Greer's Toy Shop is going to become Yes.
Better name.
Well, except that when somebody says, what you doing over there? I'm looking at Yes. You're looking at what?
Right.
Yeah. If I said I'm looking at Van Halen, you know what I'm talking about. If I said I'm looking at Genesis, you probably are thinking I'm either reading the Bible or listening to Phil Collins.
Sure.
But Yes, nobody gets it. Their other options were Life and World, which really I don't see those as better either. Like it's too vague. Yes is not a great band name, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was thinking that the version that added Trevor Rabin, where Trevor was like, I don't really want to be called Yes. Maybe they could have been called No.
So they played cover songs, covering the Beatles, Fifth Dimension, and Traffic. And then how many times does this happen? There's a big show where some band, in this case it was Sly and the Family Stone, failed to show up.
Wow.
And these guys were ready, waiting on the bench, ready to go. And they got the call. When they played that night, they were so good that the host of the show says, I want to manage you guys. A guy named Roy Flynn says, I'm going to be your manager. He gets them a gig performing with Cream at Cream's farewell concert. That gets them more success. Then they see this band called King Crimson.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about prog rock in our last episode and who the players are, and King Crimson is one of those. But they saw those guys and they're like, we have got to up our game. We've got to become better. And so they improve, and that's when they get signed by Mr. Amit Jen of Atlantic Records, who would then help them finish this album 13 years later. And in 1969, they come out with the album Yes. And then Rolling Stone says they're going to be the most successful band of the 70s. They tour with Iron Butterfly. Know that band?
In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida?
In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, baby.
Yep.
They bought Iron Butterfly's PA system so that they could sound better.
Okay.
And then Tony Kaye and Steve Howe are fighting because Tony Kaye doesn't want to play the synthesizers and he gets booted from the band.
Yep.
And by 1978, 79, they are at the absolute height of their commercial success. They play Madison Square Garden and they have $1 million in 1979 money. $1 million in box office receipts. But John Anderson, Chris Squire, and Alan White were disagreeing about which way the band should go.
Their wives, too.
Yes, their wives too. Squire and White, they wanted to be heavy rock. They wanted to be hard rock. And Anderson wanted to be light and more fantastical, more proggy,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so that ultimately ends because they're doing their sessions. And then this, I'm not kidding, Alan White is roller skating at a roller disco and breaks his foot.
Oh.
And the drummer needs his foot.
He does.
And so they have to take a break from the sessions. And so the rift and the break from the break and also some financial disputes results in John Anderson saying, "See you later. I'm out of here, guys."
He's going to leave it.
Thank you for bringing
Yes.
it back.
But
That was nicely done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of nuggets for you on this song. Leave it.
Yeah.
Okay. I talked to you the other day. The music video looks like it was done on an Apple IIe in 1983.
I got my Macintosh computer.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, so all it is just the guys in tuxedos and using the latest technology to like fold their picture and make them rotate. Their heads pop off and do circles.
Switch bodies. It's weird.
It literally is, it's somebody playing on a computer.
It has not aged well.
So here's the deal. I've been giving these guys a hard time because their videos stink, but the songs are great.
Uh-huh.
This video was done by Godley and Cream. Does that name ring a bell for you?
Yes, but I am trying to remember who they were connected to.
These guys were in a rock band. I'll play that for you here in a second. But they directed music videos like Every Breath You Take, Girls on Film, Rocket by Herbie Hancock. They did Everybody Have Fun Tonight by Wang Chung. I mean, these guys are MTV staples. They came out of a rock band called 10cc in the 70s.
I'm not in love, so don't forget it.
So I recognize that. I don't know if I remembered it from back then, but this is a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, so I remember it from that movie.
So that song's called I'm Not in Love.
Yeah.
One of the great songs of the 70s. Godley and Cream came out of that band, started directing music videos, including Leave It.
Was it on the Synchronicity album that we talked about them, talking about them directing the Every Breath You Take?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably.
Go back and check that one out. That's season 1, right?
They also had another big hit in 1985. I'm going to play for you real quick.
Okay.
Know how to play the game and you cheat, you lie, you make me wanna cry.
That's a big hit called Cry by Godley and Cream.
That I do not recognize.
Making music videos and making hit songs.
Yeah, there you go. Apparently making bad music videos. Although, heck no. I mean, if they did the Every Breath You Take video, that was awesome.
There you go. This song was the second single, and I love the one down, one to go. This song hits number 24 on the Hot 100. The top three that week were Hello by Lionel Richie, which we've covered, Footloose at number 2, and Against All Odds, which we talked about in our Best of 84. Let's move on to the next song. Okay, so the next song on the album is called Our Song.
So as a little bit of irony as we come into this song, we're having a little bit of issue with the fan versus the heater in our studio today.
Yeah, we are.
And we went from being a little chilly to like now I'm like, ooh, starting to glisten a little bit over here. as it turns out, that relates to this song.
That's right.
Yeah, the first line of this song was, Toledo was just another pit stop along the Good King's Highway. This is a reference to a Toledo show that they had done 6 years earlier.
Very memorable.
1977. They were inside an arena that got up to 126 degrees Fahrenheit. Ouch.
Woo!
Mortification took me by surprise and hit me, sent me sideways. Spellbound, roundly good for sunshine.
I would have been laying on the floor, plumb passed out from that heat.
126. You know where they play this song a lot?
Death Valley?
Possibly. Toledo, Ohio plays this song a lot
Yeah.
due to that little nod there.
There are several King's Highways. None of them are near Toledo.
There you go. This was the B-side to Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Ah.
And it also reached number 32 on the mainstream rock charts. This is this is a song.
Yeah, it's not a skipper, but it's not one of my favorites either. That's true.
Yeah. Moving on.
Heck yeah.
Moving on to the next song on the album called City of Love.
Once bitten, twice shy. No regrets at all. Justice, body smooth, take over.
So this song really jives and jingles.
Okay.
That's the line in the song. But you
Okay.
probably don't know it because it's not a song that people really know.
I'm not in love with this song either.
This is probably the lowest of the songs on the album for me as well. You get a little bit of a sample at the beginning of it that I'm not sure, but it really sounds like something from a Beatles song to me. It's just saying City of Love, City of Love, City of Love.
I will tell you this. Chris Squire got involved in rock music because he discovered the Beatles at age 16. Before that, he was involved in his church choir. All right. Last song on the album before we leave it is a song called Hearts.
So we didn't really talk about this much before. I kind of have touched on it, but this is an entirely different sound for the band, yes, than they were during the 70s.
Sure.
As we mentioned, they had 10 full albums in that time. Well, 9 full albums with John Anderson, and then the last one, Drama, with Trevor Horn and Jeff Downs. But they were full prog rock back then. They were progressive rock through and through.
Right.
This album is much more pop, but this song is really a throwback to what I think the people who loved them from the 70s would probably grab onto. There were a lot of people who didn't. They felt the same way about this that the people felt when Sammy Hagar joined Van Halen, or when they came out with 1984 and they're like, why is Eddie playing the keyboards? But this one is a throwback to the way that they were back in the 70s. We got a nice long 8-minute long song. I mean, it's not 20, but if you're on a pop album in 1984, it's a long song.
Yeah, so about 8 minutes long. It's got a kind of an oriental feel to it. But
Yeah.
you and I both agreed we really like the chorus of this song.
It's got a good hooky chorus. I guess when they play this song live, that John Anderson will speak as an introduction to the song, speak verse 2, which is, many moons cascade one river, the light from side to side. As we cross in close proximity, like rivers, our hearts entwine. Almost like I'm listening to Scott Stapp.
Just play the song, dude. Don't give us this poetry crap. Oh, yeah, but I like it. It's good. It's a good end to this album. A kind of a grand feel to close it out.
Very epic, yes.
So I guess that means we are time for final judgment.
Okay, we are comparing this album, yes, 90125, to Supertramp, Breakfast in America. If you haven't heard that episode, go back and listen to that one just before this one. Supertramp came out in 1979, exactly 45 years ago.
Ow.
And this one came out in 1984, exactly 40 years ago.
That's right.
And I'm going to let you go first, Mr. Colvin.
So this was really hard for me. These were two albums that I wasn't super familiar with. I knew the hits. I will tell you this. Both bands and both albums have kind of risen with me after breaking down the songs, breaking down the album. But I have to be honest. So when I look at the hits, it's kind of a push. I think that Owner of a Lonely Heart and Leave It, Changes, Hold On, I love them so much. And then you look at Supertramp, and you have Goodbye Stranger, you have The Logical Song, you have Take the Long Way Home. Those are so good as well. So it's the in-between songs. I'm not a progressive rock guy. I'm more of a pop harmonies kind of guy, kind of softer stuff sometimes. So if I'm honest, the album that I grab as I'm leaving for a road trip, it's Breakfast in America. That's the one I'm grabbing.
Wow.
I mean, I have come to love 90125. I don't know. I like the little synth piano keys a little bit more.
Okay, so let me just ask this, because when we started this, because I kind of suggested both of these albums,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you really didn't know who Supertramp was.
I just didn't know who they were by.
Right, yeah. You, like everybody else, you knew the words of the songs, you just didn't know what the name of the
That's
song
right.
was or the name of the band.
Right.
So you didn't know those things, and now you're picking it as number one.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I love it. I love that.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
You've moved the needle for me,
I
dude.
love that. That makes me so happy. So I very much like you. I'm looking at the hits and I'm looking at the not hits, and I'm trying to gauge those together. But I'll kind of flip the script on what you said here, because to me, the non-hits on these albums are kind of the same for me. Like
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, I can dig this song. This is a groove. I don't have really any skippers on any of the albums. There's songs that are less good, right?
Sure.
And so then what I did was I went back and I looked at the hits, and I said, okay, of these songs, these hit songs, which ones were the bigger ones for me?
Right.
And although I absolutely love Supertramp songs, I didn't know who they were. I couldn't have told you a song that they had done 5 years ago until I started exploring their work. And I listened to their whole album, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I do know these songs. So they are those songs that were good enough to catch my ear and make me think of the words, but not good enough to have me go out and buy the album. On the other hand, in 1996, when I was working as a waiter in a restaurant and Leave It came on, it brought me right back to 1984-85, when my brother was playing it in his blue Mazda as we drove to school in the morning,
Right.
And as soon as I could buy songs on my phone, I was like, I gotta buy Leave It. I have to.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was, of the big hits, which were the bigger hits, or at least the bigger hits in my heart, and it's got to be 90125.
Awesome. Well, we want to hear from you guys. How do we do? Which one did you pick? Supertramp, Breakfast in America, yes, 90125. Which was the better album to you?
Guys, it has been an incredible season number 5. We may have another episode or two, or maybe we won't. We will just surprise you with a little Happy New Year celebration.
Yeah, and then get ready for season 6. Dee, we've got some great stuff coming up.
We're rolling into the year 1985, the year of Back to the Future and Teen Wolf.
And Phil Collins.
and Peter Gabriel. It's going to be an incredible year, an anniversary year, 40 years ago. Plus, some good movies come out in 95. Some incredible movies came out in 75. There's no telling what we might cover. So, guys, thanks so much for joining us. 5 full years now. We look forward to seeing you next season.
Thanks, guys.
Over the last 75 years, over 10,000 chemicals have been introduced to our food supply. Yet the EU only allows 300 food additives. But at Thrive Market, we bring our members the highest quality brands and restrict more than 1,000 ingredients found at conventional grocery stores. Making the switch is easy with our Healthy Swaps scanner, which finds better versions of all your favorite pantry, snacking, and home essentials without the added junk, dyes, and fillers. Plus, it's all delivered straight to your door. So if you're looking to shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health, go to thrivemarket.com/podcast and you'll get 30% off your first order and a free gift.
An O'Reilly Auto Parts gift card is the perfect gift for that hard-to-buy-for person. Give the gift of convenience from O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Oh, O'Reilly Auto Parts.